The ads have been running in the Buyer's Guide as well as the local newspaper. The ads solicit actors, songwriters, screenplay writers, etc. to call Lightyear Television Productions, which is now screen testing for TV commercials and video productions. Other ads offer acting classes from Lightyear. In Your Corner decided to look into it. We came in contact with Pat Douglas. She is a legitimate actress, having appeared in a telephone company national television commercial. She's appeared on Broadway in the musical Grease, as well as many other acting credits. Pat called Lightyear Productions, but became curious because they would never give her the location of their production studios or the names of their directors. She felt this was unusual.
943-3246.
Yes, may I speak with Miss Warner, please?
Why did they answer with the last 4 digits of their phone number instead of Lightyear Television Productions? Well, Pat had talked with Lightyear earlier about being an acting teacher for them. She was calling back to ask where she could drop off a videotape showing samples of her acting work. The literature she received in the mail showed the address of 2725 Northwest Expressway, Box 119.
Are you located at that Northwest Expressway address?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm near there and I can just drop it by, but I'll call you back in 5 minutes.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
In Your Corner, associate producer Meredith Sanders also sent in for the Lightyear information, which cost $20 as a registration fee. It also gave the address on Northwest Expressway. Well, this is 2725 Northwest Expressway, the address given for Lightyear Television Production Studios. Now, at least 2 times over the phone, Lightyear people have told us this is the address for their studios. Well, as you can see, there's no sign outside, so let's go and have a look inside and see what Lightyear Television Production Studios look like. Well, as you can see, there is no television studio here. This is the office of Quick Copy, but there are some private mailboxes here, including Box 119 for Lightyear Television Productions. Well, perhaps that is why Lightyear personnel refused to allow Pat to bring her tape by. A Quick Copy employee said they had 5 or 6 people come by here looking for Lightyear. It makes you wonder if they really have a studio. The canceled check we received back from the Lightyear literature was signed by L.M. Lemmerman. We traced him to a house on Northwest 54th Street, an ordinary house that does not look like a television studio either. Another name we found associated with Lightyear was J. Lemmerman, who we traced to 3100 Northwest 47th Street. It also does not appear to be a television studio, but we found that Lightyear's phone numbers ring at this address. Now, in Pat's phone call to Lightyear Television Productions, she talked to both the secretary and to a Miss Warner. Neither would give Pat the name of the alleged studio's directors, nor would they let her come by for a visit. Everything had to be done through the mail. Well, Pat sent her audition tape, but refused to send in $20 since she just wanted to apply for a job as an acting teacher. Her tape came back saying there were no openings, but our associate producer Meredith Sanders received an invitation to a talent interview and screen test session at a city motel, not a studio. We'll see what happened there in tomorrow's In Your Corner. Well, last week we told you about the Walters family. They became deluged with migratory birds. They called In Your Corner to see what could be done about the growing mess in their backyard. Mr. and Mrs. Zach Walters took a 10-day vacation a couple of months ago. When they came home, they couldn't believe what they saw. About 1,000 egrets and herons roosting in the trees in the Walters' backyard. At first, it was interesting, but the 24-hour-a-day noise, the continuous droppings, and the feathers got them a little upset.
Well, the odor, for one thing, is pretty strong.
I noticed.
The damage they're doing to the trees. Our outdoor furniture, we've had to completely just move out. It's ruined. And the yard is covered with not just the droppings, but all the feathers and just general litter from the birds. And we've had some dead birds that we've had to dispose of in the backyard, in the immediate backyard. And then in the wooded area, we can see them back there too, along with hundreds of eggs that didn't hatch, that were just knocked out of the nest. And that is a potential problem as I see it. laying on the ground, and along with the odor, I think they're going to probably attract insects and vermin or whatever.
Well, you have a couple of children. What about them?
Yes.
Can they come out here?
No, we don't allow them in the backyard any longer.
Bertina Walters checked everywhere to find out if the birds could be chased away. I talked with B.R. Peterson at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He said they had already been chased away from 1 or 2 locations.
Like most of our birds are migratory, and they're protected by federal law agreement with other countries, international agreement, and they're protected by federal law. And supposedly, as a private individual without a permit, you can't harass them or scare them or do anything. What we do, if the birds are causing a problem, then we try to get a permit to move the birds. But the only time that I can be successful in moving the birds is after the young grown up or in the spring of the year before they start having young birds, when they first settle in the spring to start laying and building nests and laying eggs. We can move them then, or late fall. But the middle of summer, once they have young, we just can't do it.
I checked in with Bruce Miller at the Oklahoma City Zoo. Bruce takes a different point of view about the egrets and herons. He says they are protected by the government for a special reason.
No, they come in from South America and from all parts of the world just to nest right here. It's the only place in the world that this group is together, is here in Oklahoma City. The rookery itself is endangered by the threat of human intervention and people looking at them as a pest and trying to eradicate them. In that regard, the colony is seriously threatened here in Oklahoma City. But the species themselves are not endangered worldwide, but they are all protected under international treaties and federal regulations.
Bruce also says a gathering of the birds is considered a blessing in some nations.
The droppings in these colonies are really antiseptic, and they help control parasites and body lice on the birds and things like this. So it's really, there is no disease problem from that. Many countries of the world, the people feel blessed if they're near a rookery or they are chosen to be an area where the birds choose to nest.
Well, the Walters don't consider it a blessing at this point. Bruce says the zoo has a license to collect 200 of the birds. He hopes they will nest in the zoo area someday where they will be safe. He started to collect the birds now. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, in the meantime, says they will work with the Walters in removing the nests after the birds move on in a month or so. That way, perhaps they will nest somewhere else next year, and the Walters will get the use of the backyard again, plus eliminate the strong odor and the shower of eggs and feathers. And if you've got a problem right in your corner, KTVY, Box 14068, Oklahoma City 73113, or give us a call at 478-2291. I'm Brad Edwards, in your corner. Ron said he needed some help. He needed some professional advice on sculpturing, but he had a great deal of trouble finding help because he is in prison. Actually, the state prison system put Ron in the Laura Lane nursing home to serve out the rest of his time. He got in trouble for arson a few years ago. While on probation, he had an accident. He fell and was hit by a train, losing both arms and a leg. Later, a parole violation put him back behind bars. Now he says he's getting it all together.
I hope to get out soon and get married. I've got a nice girlfriend. She's a really nice girl. She's a Christian. And I don't know, I want to get into church a lot, going to church and being a Christian. I don't know yet, what my life's going to be until after I get there, I might be a Christian singer one of these days, or travel with some preachers or evangelists. That's what I'd like to do, because I feel like I owe God my life, I've been messed up here, I've been to be put in prison, but I guess just things, when you're trying to do good, that's when bad tries to mess with you and keep you from doing it, so I plan on doing it. It's been hard.
Ron hopes to help support himself through his artwork, and he does amazing work using his teeth, but he couldn't advance anymore without some professional consulting. In your corner located Christine Verteen at the Oklahoma Arts Annex. Christine said she'd be glad to help out and made her first visit to Ron last week.
I'd like to maybe try to work with you on an armature one day.
Christine introduced Ron to some new sculpting
This
tools
tool
that might
here,
help improve his technique.
It has a rounded edge and has a more angular edge, so for like your round areas you can dig in with this and just scoop it out, you know, and it's real flexible, so it's easy to work with. And
Up to now, Ron has taught himself. He's even sold a few of his works and has calls for more, but he wants to learn and improve. It's remarkable that with just a couple of tools in his teeth, Ron's transformed a lump of clay into the head of a tiger in a week's time. He hopes his life will take on new form when he's released by the prison system, and people like Christine Verteen help make that possible. In Your Corner also checked back on the Wynn Apartments in Edmond. Roger Pugh and several other tenants called me because they could not get the management to turn on the air conditioning and fix the swimming pool. They were told the air conditioning unit would be too expensive to repair and that there was not enough money to do the job. The tenants also learned that the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, was carrying the loan on the apartments, so the tenants felt HUD should require the owners to fix the air conditioning, since it was a health hazard without it this time of year. I checked with HUD officials and found that HUD could take over Wynn Apartments if HUD standards were not met. But the HUD did not want to become apartment managers, so they gave the owners time to arrange a second mortgage on the property, which they did, and that allowed them to make necessary repairs. HUD also told us they would see the tenant's rent was adjusted because of lost services, which they did. The repairs have now been made, but the rent has gone up to HUD's maximum allowable to help defray the costly repairs. However, it still saved many of the tenants from having to seek new apartments, which are in short supply in this area. I met Wilburn Henry and several other softball players at the City Park on Southwest 15th in Portland. They wanted me to have a look at the condition of the restrooms, a sore spot for many of the players, they told me. In fact, the group had started a petition drive to get the city to upgrade the restrooms. At last report, 140 players had signed.
Well, I know before we come out to warm up before a game, I've many times carried kids into the bathroom so they don't up to their knees in water. It's just pathetic because there was some snakes over at Toland Park on Reno Street. That's not too great. This is supposed to be a family sport. All the families come out, all the kids and so forth.
Yeah, because the Park and Recreation Committee has to come out every day that there's games that night and put the lime on the fields and clean off the fields and everything. That's when they're supposed to unlock the bathrooms and check the supplies, and they're not doing it.
I took a look inside the restrooms at the Portland Park. They appeared to be relatively clean and in good repair. Well, that's fine, the group said, but what good are they without any lights at night? And how safe are they without any lights? So I went to see if we could find how to turn the lights on.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
The room next door has lights.
Okay, well now, it looks like everything's on in this box, but I don't think I'd want to stand in water and turn electrical switches on. I think this would be a little bit hazardous. It looks like there's one switch here that is not on, but it doesn't have an on or off mark on it.
If you want to flip that up, I'll go check the bathrooms.
I'll probably get electrocuted. That do anything? Well, the lights in the restroom did not come on. Players there must use the restrooms in the dark. The players also told me conditions were similar in Earlywine Park, River Park, and the worst, Toland Park on Reno, where I also inspected. The restrooms there were connected to the now closed swimming pool at Toland. Now, these restrooms have obviously been vandalized, even though they're just a couple of 100 feet from the Police Canine Training Center. We can show you pictures of how filthy they are and flies in the restrooms, but it'd be difficult to describe the odor. If you had a restroom like this open to the public, City County Health Department would probably close you down as a public health hazard. Yet the Toland Park restrooms are left open. There are no other restrooms available for softball players or anyone else using Toland Park. I asked City Parks and Recreation Director Ken Wilson what the story is on the restrooms. He said Toland Park restrooms were technically closed along with the swimming pool. That was closed because of the lack of use. He said the doors are left open because Toland Park is a collecting place for transients. He said if they closed the restrooms, transients would probably break into them anyway. He said drifters have nowhere else to go. Wilson also informed us the City Softball Association is responsible for maintaining the restrooms. The city, he says, is responsible for repairs only. That's where the softball players should take their grievances for no lights or unclean restrooms. Lynn Farley called In Your Corner about a heat problem. When I visited him, I found out why. Lynn lives in a one-room apartment. Now, he owns a fan, but he hasn't been able to afford an air conditioner. He says the fan normally would help him, but when you're wearing a cast, a fan just won't get the air where it needs to go. And that is inside his cast, which he's stuck with for quite a while. Tell me a little bit what it's like wearing that thing. Or is it the heat really getting to you now?
Well, of course, when you're in a hot place, it gets hot inside, you know, and it's the cast itself is just you can just picture yourself having to wear it, you know, the limitations that you would have, right. And you can just pretty near imagine, you know, what you'd go through.
Well, Lynn had to have the corrective surgery on his shoulder. He's a truck driver and more recently a cab driver by trade. Lynn has plans for school later on, but right now he's unemployed and temporarily disabled. Lynn is not married, so he's been trying to get by on his own. He's got a part-time job lined up, he says, but it won't give him enough to get an air conditioner, which might relieve his misery inside that cast.
Air conditioner, as far as me purchasing an air conditioner, would be, I wouldn't be able to buy one this summer, I'm sure, you know, because got a lot of bills. Well, no, I don't have a great amount of bills, but according to the money I'm bringing in, you know, it's just an air conditioner would be out of it, you know.
Well, Lynn has about 3 more months to go inside that cast, so I hoped we could find him an air conditioner to make it at least bearable through the hot summer months. However, Lynn's immediate need was food. He had run out of money while looking for a job, so we took him to the welfare department where he received $12 worth of food stamps to last until the end of the month. In the meantime, we put out some feelers for an air conditioner and found a favorable response from the owner of the Sight and Sound stores. I met Daryl Chabonneau at his store on Northwest 27th and May Avenue. Daryl said he could understand what Lynn Farley was going through and would like to help. He showed me a GE portable air conditioner that was just the right size for Lynn's small apartment. So I took it over to Lynn's to give it a try. It was already so warm inside the apartment that even the fan was doing little good. I managed to get the window open high enough that we could fit the air conditioner in. And believe me, we wasted no time in getting the cool air on. Lynn couldn't believe he was finally getting an air conditioner. He said he'd write a letter of thanks to Sight and Sound, if he's able. And at last report, Lynn has found a part-time job to help pay the bills until his shoulder is healed, and now it's cool enough in his apartment that he can get some rest during the healing process.
Once I get the aluminum foil up and stuff.
In yesterday's report, we told you that we rented a car from 3 agencies. In each case, In Your Corner, associate producer Meredith Sanders rented an early 1970s model Chevrolet. The least expensive was Rent-A-Wreck, located at a Ford dealership on North May. The car ran rough, but was in usable condition and had been serviced. It did not die on us, even with the air conditioner running. The car's safety devices all worked, and it appeared to be a good deal at $10.95 a day with 50 free miles. Also, the rental process took the least time at Rent-A-Wreck. The next most expensive was Drive a Dog, located on the 39th Expressway. Meredith rented an early 70s model Chevrolet station wagon. This car was in the best shape of those we tested. It appeared to have been serviced regularly, was cleaned up, and ran very well. It performed safely and smoothly. Drive a Dog charged $12.95 a day and gives you 50 free miles and courteous service, explaining everything about the car you rent, and they even give you a free calendar. The most expensive rental rates we found was at Rent-A-Junker Classic Clunker on North Miller. Once again, Meredith rented an early 70s model Chevrolet, but things were a little different at Rent-A-Junker. Instead of a credit card, they required a $60 cash deposit on the car. They also charged more, $14.95 a day, and they only give you 25 free miles instead of 50 as the others did. Rent-A-Junker also took a rather long time to rent the vehicle, at least half an hour before Meredith drove out with the car. We met her to take a look at it. This car was in a lot worse shape than the others. The upholstery was dirty and had several tears taped back together. The speedometer and the odometer did not work, so they did not charge any mileage for this car since there's no way to record it. Unlike the others we tested, the air conditioning did not work, nor did the radio. But the most unique feature of this car was the way it had to be started. Okay, now to start this car, you put it in park as usual. You turn the key forward. Then you reach down here to this little button connected by a couple of wires underneath the dash, and you push that. It's a little slow. Well, this was the last time this car started. After I shut it off, it would not start again. While looking under the hood for the trouble, I noticed the battery was contained in a cardboard box. I couldn't find the problem with the car, so we had to drive Meredith to a phone to call Rent-A-Junker for help. They arrived in about 15 minutes and refunded Meredith's $60 deposit. Then they tried to get the car started, but they too failed to move it and drove off. That seems ironic because Rent-A-Junker also is a car repairs garage. It would seem natural they could keep their rent-a-cars in good running shape, especially if they're going to charge a higher rate. Rent-A-Junker officials declined an interview within your corner concerning their cars, but I talked with Thelma Pierce, the credit manager at Dub Richardson Ford. I asked her what a customer can expect from Rent-A-Wreck.
They're run right through our shop, and we do the same inspections. We do the very same things that we would do if you brought your car in. Each of these cars has to stand on its own.
I also talked with Bob Yount, the owner of Drive a Dog, about his cars.
We do have, as I say, we try to do the best we can to make sure they're solid before they leave here. But we do have 24-hour roadside service in case there is a breakdown.
That's what I was going to ask you. I suppose there is a chance with an old... Everybody's crowing about the problem here in the 3100 block of Southwest 26th Street. The neighbors live right along the railroad tracks of the Burlington Northern. Now, that's no problem. They can live with the trains, and they can even stand the high grass that grows beside the tracks right next to their yards. What they can't tolerate is what lives in that tall grass, and it's the reason David Berry carries his .22 pistol with him when he goes out behind his house.
Well, with rats, it seems like we got a pretty good pack of them. They've tunneled up under our properties. We've got 4-inch deep runs where they consistently run around the foundation of the house, and this runs on down the neighborhood throughout all the houses.
A lot of them? How many of you?
I assume there's a lot. I put out 2 pounds of poison in one night, and it was gone the next morning. I've personally killed 7.
In what time period?
In a 2-week period.
Another neighbor says the high weeds and the rats have been bothering him for several years.
But the rats get in my garden and they eat up my tomatoes, they eat up everything in it. And what I'm afraid of, this gentleman, David, his dog got a hold of a rat and poisoned him. And it costs a lot of money to save a good dog. And I wouldn't take anything from my dogs. And this has been going on for years. One year I got perturbed. I burned it out. And the fire department come out, and I was lucky they didn't charge me for setting it on fire. But it was so high, and this has been going on for years. And you can call City Hall, you can call anybody, and you can't find nobody that'll do anything.
Neighbors want those weeds mowed down. With all the recent rains, the weeds have grown higher than ever this year, and the rainwater has formed a swamp alongside the tracks, a perfect breeding grounds for the rats and even some copperhead snakes. David Berry says the weeds belong to the Burlington Northern Railroad, but they haven't been able to get anyone anywhere to do anything about them.
Well, I started with City Action Line. They referred me to Oklahoma Commerce Commission to Mr. Bill Monger. Mr. Bill Monger seemed not to get nothing done, so I called back again and again to Action Line, back to Bill Monger. Bill Monger referred me about the rats to the U.S. Fish and Game Department. They referred me to the County Animal Control or Animal Welfare. Animal Welfare said since they're not considered an animal, there's no business of theirs. They referred me to weed abatement. Weed abatement said they couldn't do anything unless the city ordered them to. I guess they work for the city. Then from weed abatement, he told me to get hold of the fire department and police department.
Well, David said it just went on and nothing ever happened. He said some of the neighbors got a brush hog and tried to go through there cutting down the weeds, but they found so much debris, broken railroad ties and coiled cables, they were afraid of ruining the brush hog. Well, In Your Corner called Bill Monger at the Corporation Commission. He heads the railroad division for the state. Monger said the state requires the railroad to mow only the immediate area of the tracks, but he said he'd try one more thing, contacting the Burlington's division supervisor in Tulsa, Jerry Vaden. Well, we soon heard back. Mr. Vaden said he would approve mowing those weeds, and if he couldn't get a crew out this afternoon, it would be the first of the week.